So, Adrian, the Cowboys announced that they're bringing Mike McCarthy back as head coach. Are the Cowboys making the right move by doing this?
Honestly, no, they're not. I mean, what has he showed you? He comes out and gets embarrassed. He's taking over play calling, and Kellen Moore was a scapegoat last year. Then he decided to take over play calling. It's just not the good job done. He talked about one of the things I know Mike McCarthy talked about before the season started was the fact that they're going to run the football a lot more and stick to it. But that plan failed real quick. You don't have the horses in the backfield to run the ball. I mean, Tony Pollard's good, don't get me wrong, but he's not a guy you can give the ball to 22, 23 times a game. He's more of
Also 27.
yeah, the
27 years old.
15 to 17 carries. He'd be good in a dual role, like how Jalen Warren's with Najee Harris. It's a two-back system. So every time these running backs decide to not produce, then that puts more pressure on the running back mark in the group. But he didn't even, like I said, Mike McCarthy didn't even try to do it. And everything's not his fault, but I just think he's in over his head with this team. I guess 2024 is the last year of his contract, so I guess the Cowboys are going to let it run out. But they're going to do Cowboy things like I've talked about before, which makes me happy because I despise this franchise. But let them run it back with them, and they're going to fail again like they always do until they can show me that they can get over that proverbial hump. Then what difference does it make? They're just gonna. Jerry Jones comes out every year and tells you how great his team is, and his team is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're as great as the '90s. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not the case because these '90 teams won Super Bowls, and this franchise hasn't done anything since they beat my Steelers in '95 in the Super Bowl. Haven't even made a championship game. So I'm done with all the talking, man. Cowboys need to stop talking. And the biggest thing I think Jerry needs to stop being so involved in the team. I know he's held hands on. But at some point in time, you're hurting and you're putting a detriment to your franchise. That's why they've never had a really great coach in the last 30 years because he's hiring guys who just do whatever he says. You can't get a Bill Belichick, or you couldn't get like any elite coach like a Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan because they're not putting up with that BS. But it's gonna fail. So he'll end up being let go at the end of 24 season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Adrian said. I'll play a little bit of devil advocate. I mean, he's had a good resume since he's been in Dallas. They've been 12-5 the last 3 years. He's won the division twice. He's looked like a good coach during the regular season, as they kind of generally always do. Like he said, with the one more year left on his deal, I think that they made a fine move. It's hard to go out and find coaches, especially with the juice carousel that's going on right now. You know, there's so many teams looking for head coaches in Washington, LA, Rams, Tennessee, New England down there. But there's so many, it's like a quarterback. It's hard to replace a quarterback to have a winning team. It's hard to replace a coach for a winning team. We saw it in Detroit. Dan Campbell, he had a losing record the first year, winning record the second year. And now he's, where he's at now. So it's hard to replace coaches, man. And a guy who has the resume that McCarthy's had the last 3 years, I can't fault them for getting rid of him. I just don't think he's the guy. Like Adrian said, I think Jerry Jones is the reason he can't get his ego out of his, he can't get out of his own head. He's the reason the team really doesn't succeed as much. He should just have kind of a say in the draft process, like to a certain extent, step back, kind of like Martha does. Oh yeah, I like that pick, but let the real guys who stick out these guys and study these guys for years do your picking. You don't have any input on it. Just agree with what they say, let your team build. Ultimately, I think if given one more run, same thing happens again where they lose. I think they get rid of him, and I think they get rid of Dak. I think that they're going to have to get rid of both of those guys, retool. Like you said, Tony Pollard's not the guy. He's 27. He's a competent guy. He's not a starter. You saw like Dwodle or whatever his name is take over some of the carries. So I think it's fine if they kept him ultimately. Hopefully they do what Cowboys do and jail again. But I think it was the right move. You don't have to go through the headache of replacing him with another guy after there's a dozen teams looking for head coaches right now.
Right. Yeah, especially if he only has 1 year left on his contract. Why not bring him back for one make or break year? So I agree. If him and Dak don't get it done next year, that's it. Like the Cowboys fell, and it's not all McCarthy's fault. He's a big slice of the pie, but he's at blame. Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott, the running game. They missed Zeke. Zeke was the thunder to Pollard's lightning. And I don't think Zeke got enough credit for how much he helped in the passing game as far as how good of a pass blocker he is. How he picks up blitzes and things like that. It's the small things, but those are really big things that could have helped him a lot this season. So
I know it's hard for them. I know it's hard for them because they're Dallas Cowboys and they get so much publicity. But at what point in time do you guys just try to quiet the noise and try to just play football instead of having him come out every week after week, and putting all the pressure on his players? You know, just play football. I know you want all the attention, Jerry, but just let your team get the job done. And this is it for me. If Dak can't find a way to win a playoff game next year, he's done that. They can't cut him this year because I think his cap hits like $60 million, something. It's something crazy. But if they can't get the job done and win a playoff game, there's going to be some big changes. But what they do need to do, and I'm not a big fan of them, but I will say what they need to do is draft a running back or get somebody in the running game to help Tony Pollard out. That way they can take some of the pressure off Dak. So was Cam Newton right? Maybe after all he had some sense to what the statement he made. So, but Dak hasn't got it done, and he's performed worse and worse throughout the years in these playoff games. And like you say, Reed, 12-5, 12-5. What does that get you? First round exit, first round exit, first round exit. So the excuses are done, and they've been done.
What
did Cam Newton say?
He called him. He made the game manager comment about
the game manager like Goff and Brock Purdy and all those other guys. He's not an elite guy like Lamar or Patrick Mahomes, which I agree with. Actually, I think Dak is kind of a guy who, because he's on Dallas, he kind of gets a scapegoat route where he can be this, and he always looks good every year. He's thrown for a million yards and a bunch of touchdowns. He's cleaned up the picks for the most part, but he does get put on this pedestal over other guys that aren't as good. I mean, he had a heck of a year this year. I said that he probably could have been an MVP. But look at it, I respect that statement. I don't think he's as good of a player as I kind of got the wool pulled over my eyes with that one. But yeah, I think it's just I think this is the year. Like you said, it's tough. It's almost like the Kyler situation. Like when everybody was talking about the Cardinals potentially, they can't really get rid of Kyler because if they got rid of him, it's $93 million in dead cap. So like they pay all these quarterbacks all this money, you end up getting rid of them unless you can trade them and somehow recoup some of that money from them. But when it's guaranteed, it's hard.